First up at noon, a daycare company is facing new lawsuits from families who claim their children were sexually assaulted by a worker at their Avon location. That worker is facing criminal charges. Today, we're learning more about when the suspect worked at other BrightPath locations. Your reporter Taylor Knight is in Avon breaking it all down.
That worker, John Carlos Barrios Otero, was arrested by police here in Avon and is being held behind bars on sexual assault charges. Now, lawyers for victims and their families say that these latest lawsuits are just the beginning of their efforts to uncover exactly what happened. Barrios Otero started working for BrightPath Avon in January of 2022. The company also said that he filled in at 3 other locations, including just a few months ago on January 20th at the Simsbury location, September 16th of last year at the Windsor facility, and September 24th in West Hartford. The company says it is not aware of any allegations of abuse from those dates, but attorneys who filed these latest lawsuits say they want to know more. They hope these lawsuits uncover what BrightPath and its parent company Busy Bees knew, when they knew it, and whether adequate safeguards were in place to protect children. BrightPath says all employees undergo thorough state and federal background checks, and that Barrios Otero had no prior convictions and a clean background check when he was hired. There are now a total of 3 civil lawsuits against BrightPath Avon. That facility shut its doors 2 weeks ago. Your reporter in Avon, Taylor Knight, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
We have reached out to BrightPath Daycare for an official statement on these new lawsuits. We have not heard back at this time.